Welcome, everybody, to this special Christmas edition of the Watchmen Podcast. I'm Zach Upchurch, joined by Garrett Chambers and Ben Todd Hunter. Ben will be working on his own thing throughout the show, so he'll come in at the end and give his final thoughts, per se. Today we're going to be talking, as the name implies, about Christmas and its Christian implications. If you want to hear more about Christmas and Santa and all that good stuff, go check out Ben's show. He's started a new show called The Oddcast. We'll link that down in the description once he gets that going. Talking about a lot of unhinged stuff over there. Basically, all of the stuff that is just like extra banter from this show. We'll go over there. He'll have other topics, random stuff, pretty much unscripted.
And the ones that tell you viewer discretion advised, they mean it. And
yeah, some of them have a content warning, though that content warning is for a reason.
yeah,
But enough about the Oddcast. We are talking about Christmas. We're gonna start with a brief overview of the Christmas holiday. So it begins with pre-Christian and solstice roots. In the 4th century, it becomes a Christian holiday. The Middle Ages becomes a quote unquote modern holiday, and then of course the Puritans ban it because they're funless people. In the 1800s, Victoria and Albert popularized the Christmas tree and made public partying kind of not a thing and made it more family-centered. And then now, obviously, we have mass marketing, consumerism, and culture. Gur, take us away with our first, the pre-Christian roots of Christmas. Tell us the history of Christmas.
you got it. So long before anyone sang Silent Night, winter was already the season of celebration. Picture it, ancient Rome. The streets are glowing with candles and laughter during the Saturnalia, a festival where social rules turned upside down. Gifts were exchanged and feasting lasted for days. Think of Germanic villages deep in the winter dark, lighting massive Yule logs to chase away the cold and welcome the returning sun. The pre-Christian lands offering worship and mirth to their god, because these solstice festivals weren't just parties; they were survival rituals, hopeful reminders that even the darkest nights eventually gave way to the light. Even throughout the millennia, these old celebrations didn't disappear; they lingered in people's memories and their traditions, and eventually wove themselves into what would become Christmas in a way. Obviously, that's all cult stuff. Then
Yeah, pretty much.
Then we move into the birth of it becoming a Christian holiday. Fast forward several hundred years, when Christianity began to spread through the Roman Empire, the early church didn't focus much on Jesus' birth, believe it or not. The Bible never gives a specific date for the birth of Christ, but by the 4th century, church leaders made the strategic decision. They chose December 25th as the official date to celebrate the Nativity and the birth of our Lord, because they believed that Jesus would die on the same day he was conceived. And
Wait, what?
yeah, that's how it became that, because they believed he died on April 25th, and so that was when he
Okay.
conceived, or that was when he conceived, and then 9 months later is December
Okay,
25th.
I'm stupid. I was thinking he said he was born on the same day
Oh,
he died, not conceived. I'm like, okay,
right,
yeah.
yeah,
Which is kind of funny because most likely he actually wasn't born during wintertime
yeah,
because they were like out in the fields and you wouldn't be out in the fields if it was wintertime. But I
yeah,
digress.
exactly.
Keep
But
going.
yeah, it's not a super important thing.
Yeah.
So why then did they choose that date? We talked about that. But also, by placing the birth of Jesus near solstice festivals and Roman holidays, Christianity could offer a new meaning to the time of year. People were already celebrating. Instead of honoring the turn of the sun, they honored the birth of the sun. And so Christmas became a theological statement wrapped in familiar winter traditions, an attempt to do away with the pagan myth and replace it with the true myth of Christianity. Furthermore, a lot of people will say that the winter cult holidays were on December 25th, but there's actually no evidence for that. That was a date they chose because of what we talked about. But it wasn't them trying to
Yeah.
gloss over all the stuff.
Well, and I think solstice is the 21st or something like that.
Yeah,
So it's within like 3 or 4 days. It's pretty close.
yeah.
But it's not like on that date.
Mhm.
Moving into the Middle Ages, as the centuries rolled on, the new Christmas, the Christian Christmas, grew into one of the biggest events of the medieval calendar. The holiday stretched across days and sometimes weeks, and it blended faith with festivity. Native plays retold the story of Bethlehem for the crowds who couldn't read, which, let's face it, was most of them,
Mm.
wandering from house to house, singing and being greeted with warm cups of cider. Christmas was a time of sharing. Since God shared the gift of salvation with us, obviously, we can share our abundance with others. Feasts filled long wooden tables with roasted meats and spiced ales. This was Christmas before, like, the quiet family dinner, loud, colorful, and communal. Kind of reminds you of modern Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It was a world where Christianity lived side by side with folk traditions, where celebrating the birth of Christ meant joining your entire village in one long, big, joyful, and slightly chaotic party. Slightly chaotic, like Ben's ChatGPT.
Yep.
When the Reformation came in the 1500s, it brought along a dramatic shift. Many Protestant leaders began trimming away at traditions they felt had drifted too far from Scripture. And nobody trimmed harder than the Puritans. To them, Christmas was suspicious, a holiday with no biblical date, tangled up in pagan leftovers, and too many excuses for wild behavior. Gotta admit it, those Puritans were pretty stony when
Yeah.
it comes to
In
fun.
in principle, I don't disagree, but in practice, they did go a bit
They
far.
went really far.
Yeah.
In both the 1600s in England and the early American colonies, the Puritans actually banned Christmas, and they forced shops to stay open on December 25th. And if you were caught celebrating, you could get fined. Obviously, though, people don't give up on parties that easily. Behind closed doors, quietly, or maybe not so quietly, families kept the spirit alive, baking forbidden pies, exchanging small gifts, and whispering songs. Eventually, the ban faded, but it left its mark. For a long time in America, I don't know why I read that as Antarctica, but I did this time. For a long time in America, Christian Christmas remained subdued, more of a footnote than the cultural giant it would one day become.
Moving on to the 1800s, modern Christmas is invented. Almost suddenly, Christmas was reborn. The 19th century reshaped the holiday into something new, something warmer, something a little more sentimental. Charles Dickens, with A Christmas Carol, painted Christmas as a time of compassion and family, a season that when even the hardest hearts might soften. Across the Atlantic, writers and artists were doing their part. Clement Clarke Moore wrote, quote, "'Twas the night before Christmas," giving us reindeer, chimney descents, and a Santa who felt personal. Across the Atlantic, writers and artists were doing their part. Clement Clarke Moore wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," giving us reindeer, chimney descents, and a Santa who felt personal. Thomas Nast's illustrations later solidified the Santa we recognize today, round, jolly, and dressed in red. Meanwhile, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert made the Christmas tree fashionable throughout the English-speaking world, turning it into an iconic centerpiece of the season. In a single century, Christmas shifted from a rowdy public revelry to the cozy family-centered celebration we can now imagine. Moving into the 20th century, Christmas goes global. By the late 20th century, Christmas had gone from tradition to powerhouse. Industrialization and mass marketing turned the holiday into a season of dazzling store windows, greeting cards, and well-timed sales. Hollywood added its own magic with films like It's a Wonderful Life, and music from Bing Crosby to Mariah Carey became a soundtrack we still can't escape, unfortunately.
Yeah, for real.
Santa became not just a character, but a worldwide symbol, promoted by advertisers and embraced by families everywhere. In many countries, Christmas became both religious and secular, one part sacred, one part cultural phenomenon. You didn't need to be Christian to enjoy the lights, the trees, and the sense of warmth it brought to the cold winter nights.
Yeah, and then today, Christmas is a mosaic. It's a blend of thousands of years from human celebration. For millions, it remains a day of holy I'm starting to feel the caffeine. For millions, it remains a holy day marking the birth of Jesus. For others, it's a moment of family, generosity, and tradition. And for many, it's simply a bright spot in winter, a time of lights, music, and comfort. What started as an ancient solstice rituals reshaped by the church and reinvented by the Victorians, then amplified by modern culture, has become one of the world's most recognizable holidays. Christmas is no longer just a date. It's a season, a feeling, and a story still being written every year. But it fell. With the dawn of the 21st century came the advent of consumerism. People began seeing Christmas as a time of getting rather than giving. Sure, root traditions were still the same, but mass media and marketing had taken the Christ out of Christmas. The media stopped advertising the real message and instead took advantage of the gift conception and turned it on its head. Instead of generosity and being given the gift of Christ, imagine what you could get. It's about what you can take rather than what you can give. And this is what we see today. A Christmas that has been ruined by lights and toys taking our attention away from the real reason we celebrate Christmas. So what does this mean for the Christian for us. What does this mean?
And we see a shift from being centered on Christ to being centered on gifts and plastic. And this goes with the whole major cultural shift of the last 50,
Yeah.
80 years, somewhere around there, with the with leftism and secularism just taking over the zeitgeist. The modern terms right and left come from the French Revolution, also, fun fact. During the National Assembly, with the Christians on the right side of the building and all the pagans were on the left side of the building.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a very fun fact.
The more you know.
Really. As everything gets more secular, so do our Christian holidays, which is something we've seen for a long time. So, in order to things we need to do with this is to teach everyone that it's not just about Santa. Uh, we'll get into that more.
So,
Right.
how does this the holiday and everything we talked about with that connect to materialism? We're going to talk about that a little bit, and it's kind of where we get into the materialism is right here, where people they're all focused on the gifts, the food, and the decor, and kind of miss the forest for the trees, pun intended, for celebrating what Jesus did. Everybody gets so focused on Christmas trees and lights and stuff that they kind of miss like
Mhm.
the reason for the season. To use a corny phrase. Um, so several things, just particularly before we get into like materialism and Christmas, just talk about materialism itself. Scripture warns against defining the life by possessions. Luke 12:15 says, "Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." And Matthew 6, so this is an encouragement to store up treasures in heaven. Like I said, most Christians worry Christmas has become more about getting than giving, which is just straight up selfishness, which is born of pride, which are both sins.
So now the question becomes, how do we respond to the massed paganization of Christmas and culture in general, as well as keep ourselves from being caught in the trap of being a consumerized, uh, our Christmas is becoming consumerized. So these are some ways that we can respond to this as Christians and as men of God. Recentering Christmas around worship, attending Advent services, reading the Nativity story, emphasizing prayer and reflection. These are all great ways to just keep yourself grounded in the truth, essentially.
Mhm.
Also, practicing simplicity, because many fans will intentionally reduce gift budgets and decorations, event obligations to preserve focus.
Which side effect? This gets into like the whole Americans are way too busy thing. Like
Mm,
a lot of our culture now has just become like when you ask them, "Hey, how are you?" Everybody's like, "Oh, crazy busy."
yeah,
Um, and that's a whole nother topic, but um, especially in the Christmas season because the Christmas
yeah.
season is just busier than every other time of year.
Mm,
We need to be especially careful to not just be crazy busy and focused on bouncing from one thing to the other, but actually
yeah.
slow down and not get burnt out. And that's like what I've actually talked to a lot of people that are like that. They're like,
Mm,
the Christmas season, the New Year's season, it's just exhausting because you're
yeah.
always running around, going to party A, party B, that kind of
Mm,
thing. Um, and obviously, like focusing less on gifts and less on decorations. I think
yeah.
decorations are fun personally.
Mm.
Um,
And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
no, but like with the events because that is a really big thing. Like everybody
Yeah.
goes to like 5 different Christmas parties or whatever.
Hmm.
Like you don't need that.
No, and
Um,
God talks so much about rest and rest
yeah.
being an important thing that we have.
Well, and I
That's why we
think
have the Sabbath.
exactly. And I think it would be a much better use of our time to just sit
Mhm.
down and focus on God and rest
Yeah,
during the Christmas season rather than bounce around to parties.
yeah.
And because then we can focus more time on God.
Obviously, it is good to spend time with family
Right,
and
right.
friends,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
all things in moderation.
for sure.
So, moving on. Furthermore, giving to the poor is another way that we can do this. This echoes the heart of the gospel. Christ came in humility for humanity, being God Himself, and so God cares for the marginalized, which is something that is lost sometimes, especially on the right.
Yeah.
Generosity reflects God's character, and we're commanded to in the Bible. Churches often emphasize charity during the season, uh, i.e., food drives, toy donations, missions giving. All those are great things. Um,
Yeah.
the obviously be wise with it and pray and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I
but-
think a lot of the churches have good reason behind it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of good things that can happen from that. Like I know a lot of people do like to Operation Christmas Child shoe boxes or whatever,
Yeah.
which I think is totally cool. And a good way to get the gospel out and stuff. But if that becomes our focus, I think that can kind of be a little bit
Right.
off-putting from the whole centered on Christ rather than the stuff. And because you can't just take it too far.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't just be so caught up in, oh, we got to like evangelize and do stuff that, again, you miss the forest for the trees of not actually slowing down and rest and celebrate Christ and give glory to him. But you're busy and doing other stuff. So again, not that these are bad things. These are really good things. When used right, they can be fantastic tools. But yeah, when used in moderation, used well, which ultimately comes down to your discretion.
Yeah.
Something that you have to decide between you and God or your conscience or whatnot. And what you decide may be different than what somebody else decides, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's not sin, you're good. Roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing that we can do is teaching children the difference between fun Christmas and true Christmas. Some families enjoy Santa Claus and gifts, but intentionally frame them as secondary to the birth of Christ. I don't know about you guys, but that's what my family did. I think it's fine. It's because Santa Claus is a massive part of the culture.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And I think just because we're from the Watchmen podcast, we have to bring this in. Is Santa a demon?
That's the question.
That's the question.
There's more.
No, Santa.
Jeffrey Epstein is a demon.
Yeah.
And
No.
Santa Claus is Jeffrey Epstein, so by process of elimination.
Yeah, I think as far as Santa for the first time, I can genuinely say no. Like, because nobody is actually claimed to see him.
I totally I don't necessarily believe this, but I think
there's more proof than we might think.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think Santa exists. No.
Yeah.
I think the legend of Santa is based off of Saint Nick, who is obviously a Christian and obviously did very good things. I think they took it too far. And I think actually the demons could be using Santa as a ploy to take our focus off of Christ.
Exactly.
Because Santa himself is not a demon per se. But I think that the demons could be using Santa to drive consumerism to pull us away from God and to, take Christ out of Christmas essentially or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts. Because of our background, we have to bring the demons into it somehow. I think the demons are behind Santa. Not actually. But I think it could definitely be a ploy, and basically anything anti-gospel, anything that drives the masses or the public away from Christ, I think could definitely have demonic origin and demonic roots. Like we see demonic culture. I don't think we talk about it enough, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something we see a lot back in like the Bible in Jesus' time. Like, oh yeah, dude's crazy. Yeah, he's demon possessed. Whereas like now we don't really talk about demon possession or stuff. And I think, first of all, I think the demons just change the play that they run on us. Like, whereas they go from like straight up possession to more like hauntings and a message of materialism and did God really say type thing, which is literally a lie as old as creation itself. Like that's the first thing that Satan ever said in the garden was, did God really say? And that's like the whole lie of materialism and consumerism and all that stuff, which is why we just need to be really careful about anything that takes our focus away from Christ.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And because back in those times, everyone believed in demons. It was just kind of a fact of life. Whereas now we've moved completely away from that. Right. And so now we can attribute it to mental illness and all
and
these
it's kind
things.
of like the shift away from Christ as a culture on the whole is that as we've gotten farther and farther away from Christ and the spiritual, the understanding of the spiritual, it just goes completely askew.
Yeah. So here's a short list of just more fuel to that fire. What is the difference between Santa and an idol? Here's a short list. People sell statues of him. And so is the short list. People sell statues of him. True. They write stories about him. True. Teach him to their kids, and all that. They attribute omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence to him.
Mm-hmm.
They portray him as an arbiter of justice, and they have a holiday that is completely centered
Based
around
off
him.
of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they change their behavior to please him.
So basically, don't idolize Santa because
Yeah.
Santa is turning into an idol, and we all know what idols are.
Demons. Although, here's one more point. Santa is an idol. Like this just kind of proves it. But Santa doesn't promise you anything in the afterlife. So he's just like a really lame god.
He's a really lame demon.
Yeah.
But see, I think that's the ploy that they're running.
Mm.
Is it's not overly against like God, and it's not overly against Christianity and
Mm.
our values. It's just a little bit. Because if it's overly against what we believe, then obviously we can point at it and say, nah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. But if it's just a little bit, and if it just pushes the line,
Mm.
then obviously we can get pulled into it a lot easier and be like, oh, it's fine. He's just like bringing some gifts down the chimney.
Yeah.
It's a fun legend. He takes the cookies, whatever.
Mm.
Like the Tooth Fairy. But it's yeah.
It can get out of hand.
It can get out of hand, and when you start taking, and this is what we see in America, is he takes the focus off of Christ and everything. Santa, like what's on your Santa list,
Yeah.
like or whatever, and it just goes crazy about taking the focus away from Christ and on the gifts,
Mm-hmm.
which is not like there's nothing innately wrong with gifts. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, but
If Christmas wasn't started as the Christian holiday celebrating Jesus, then maybe it wouldn't be that bad.
right.
But the fact that it is basically the entire point of it now being that it's taking away from Christ.
Right. Well, and I think as this is the ploy that demons run is they
Yeah.
gradually take away from the message of Christ and the message of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of I'm not saying Santa is a demon.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this whole thing is intertwined of a secular for lack of a better word, satanic ritual, because like that is what the devil does is he
Yeah.
deceives.
Anything that is not of Christ is against Christ.
And this is an easy way to deceive and slowly lead people away from the true message. And that's how we see it happen is it's not like big steps, it's little steps, little slips from instead of focusing on Christ to now like, oh, we get Legos. And
Right.
we don't talk about Jesus at all. We're talking about Legos and parties and sweaters and that kind of thing. So I think it can definitely be a demonic play.
Yeah.
Um,
So that was a fun little tangent there.
that was a fun little tangent.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Final thoughts. Do you have anything before I go into our personal application at the end here?
Go for it.
I think
Yeah. So like we said, these apply differently to different people.
Mhm.
It's like we said, it's a heart thing, not just like a guidebook of rules.
Yeah.
We need to be selfless in our giving, do unto others as you would have done to you. Like we see what Christ has done for us. That's the idea of giving gifts is to imitate Christ in the gift that he gave us.
yeah, make a personal sacrifice.
Exactly. For the betterment of others.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for us to do. Because it makes us not proud and hoarders and that type of thing where we just want more. We can actually be selfless and give, which is biblical, and I think we should totally do that.
Mhm.
Now, how does this really relate to the culture as a whole? Because like we talked about with the Halloween episode, like should we actually celebrate Halloween as Christians? Should we do Halloween? So does this mean that we should just not do anything? We should just not do Christmas at all? Yes. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, there's nothing inherently wrong with Christmas. It did start out as a pagan holiday. It's been Christianized, and it's still quote unquote Christian, I would say. Obviously, it's celebrating the birth of Christ. So I think this is where there's no reason we can't celebrate it. It's not like anything
Right.
bad. as long as we just make sure we aren't centered on the material and the gifts and the plastic and all that kind of stuff,
Mm.
We're fine. We need to be centered on Christ, and that's how we should live our lives anyway, is centered on Christ.
Yeah.
So it's really nothing different than our normal lives. And we should encourage everyone we talk to live the same way. When we talk to people at Christmas parties, we should encourage them to focus on Christ, not the lights in the tree. And by all means, get into the holiday spirit, but be focused on and filled with the Holy Spirit at the same time.
That's a bar.
That's a bar.